Hi, welcome to my 28th weekly live stream. It's a beautiful day here in Asheville, North Carolina. Hope it's beautiful wherever you are. Thank you for tuning in. This is called the 9:30 Pint.
Well, it's not so big a town, and I know all of the locals. Some come in to read newspapers, some forget their bifocals. Strangers find a home here, trust me, I have seen all kinds. 9:30 in the morning is when I start pouring pints. The 9:30 pint can set the morning right for the one who just got off after working all the night. It's a stop along the way as he makes his journey home. Before he pulls the curtains close, disconnects the phone. The 9:30 pint for whoever wanders in. Well, it's not for me to wonder or ask where they might have been. If he passed out in the bushes or if he caught a couple winks, well, I don't make it my business to know why they need a drink. The 9:30 pint, perhaps to start a person's day. Well, who am I to judge? Who am I to say? 'Cause if they leave here happier than when they first come in, I'll be here tomorrow morning should the punter call again. The 9:30 pint is when I'm glad to pour, 'cause I'm grateful for the business that comes in through the door. So what are you having, sir? What's it gonna be? I can tell you're not a local. Are you from across the sea? So blessings to the morning. It's another fine day. I turn away no one, 'cause I have bills to pay. You see that pub across the street, the one up top the hill? If I don't pour the early one, well, you can bet they will. So before you rush to judgment and condemn a decent man, allow me to introduce myself and offer you my hand. Just your friendly publican, you're very welcome here. I open at 9:30, you don't have to drink beer.
Here's a picture of me with Tom Nevin. the publican who served me that 9:30 pint. You'll notice it's 9:30 in the evening there. That was after a show in County Leitrim many, many years ago. I would love to know where it is that you're watching today from. If you'll say hello in the comments and let me know that, I'd be grateful for that. Also would like to let you know that there's information on how to tip today if you're interested. It's in the beginning of the comments on YouTube. It's in the beginning of the comments on Facebook. And also in the chat window in YouTube. This is my sole means of making a living these days. And anything that you care to contribute would be very much appreciated. I want to play a Newish song. This song is about a woman named Ava Moses Kaur who attended the trial of an SS guard who had 300,000 counts of complicity to murder. And this is what happened when she confronted him at the trial.
Today's the day you used to wonder if you would ever live to see. They finally brought the man to justice. What kind of justice will there be? Nobody knew a thing about him. He never talked about his past. It was a shock to all the neighbors when it caught up to him at last. He changed his name in Argentina. He grew a beard and dyed his hair. He bought a farm and raised a family, and even they were unaware. It's not the face that you remember, it's not the one that you despise. Today he's frail and he's remorseful, no skull and crossbones in his eyes. Today he's in his early 90s, and just a week ago he fell. Some want for him to die in prison, some wish he'd just go straight to hell. Listens to the charges. He doesn't offer a defense. He does not say he followed orders. He does not claim his innocence. He looks at you and not the jury. They will decide if he should live. He is not begging them for mercy. He could not ask you to forgive. You practiced how you would confront him. You thought you came to seek revenge. You thought that he was less than human. He used to look through that same lens. But when he whispered he was sorry, the only words that he would speak, there was the justice that you came for. You let him kiss you on the cheek. Today he's in his early 90s, and just a week ago he fell. Some want for him to die in prison, some wish he'd just go straight to hell. But when he whispered he was sorry, the only words that he would speak. It wasn't justice that you came for. You let him kiss you on the cheek.
Picture here. This is of the two of them embracing at the trial. So, if you're watching on Facebook today, you can follow me on Facebook. See where that red arrow is pointing at that little bell-shaped icon. If you click on it, it'll give you a couple of options, and you can decide to follow me. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. So, it's been a crazy week. These are crazy times. Here's a Newish Song.
People are looking to rumble, and the other half are spoiling for a fight. The logic that they're using is all jumbled, but who needs facts when you know you're right? Well, half the people nowadays are bonkers, and the other half have all gone insane. Everybody everywhere looks angry, and they need to blame somebody for their pain. Now half the news you get today is phony, and the other half you get today is fake. But what's real is the independent journalist who gets tortured but refuses to break. People have lost their marbles, and the other half have all lost their minds. On top of that, we've become so heartless. Underneath it all, we must have lost our spines. Well, half the people are just plain cuckoo, and the other half are just plain Looney Tunes. Bite your tongue, you can't talk sense to any of them. They hate you when you burst their balloons. Now half the people have gone crazy, and the other half have all gone mad. Well, I could make a fortune selling bridges if I hadn't sold the last one that I had. Have no idea, and the other half, they haven't got a clue. They'll believe anything anyone will tell them, unless it can be proven to be true. Well, half the people are just plain cuckoo, and the other half are just plain Looney Tunes. Bite your tongue, you can't talk sense to any of them. They hate you when you burst their balloons. Now half people are talking rubbish, and the other half, they're all just talking crap. You've got to be careful and remind yourself not to take the bait, step into the trap. 'Cause half the people nowadays are bonkers, and the other half have all gone insane. Every everybody everywhere looks angry, and they need to blame somebody for their pain. Well, half the people are just plain cuckoo, and the other half are just plain Looney Tunes. Bite your tongue, you can't talk sense to any of them. They hate you when you burst their balloons. They hate you when you burst their balloons.
So if you're interested in picking up recordings of mine, you can get CDs at chuckbrodsky.com, and you can get digital downloads at bandcamp.com. And I'm going to just show you some URLs right here in case you want to write them down. The digital downloads on Bandcamp at the bottom there, they are on a pay-whatever-you-want basis. If you're interested in tipping through Venmo or Cash App or PayPal, those are the URLs. And as I mentioned earlier as well, they're in the comments. I'll talk about Patreon a little bit later. As you know, I love to go up to Harbor Springs, Michigan every year for the Lamb's Retreat for songwriters. Everybody's given a great songwriting assignment that you have 2 days to complete. And on Sunday, the end of the retreat, everybody gets together and sings their new songs. Now, my favorite of all the assignments I've ever gotten was this one here. I'm going to give you a minute to read it while I tune up. You may have heard of the term the manic pixie dream girl. You may have heard me tell about this very assignment, but I managed to find it, the original copy, and scan it. So hopefully you've had a chance to read through that. I was to write a song swearing off of the manic pixie dream girl. And among the 5 or 6 songs that I've written at Lamb's Retreat that end up on CDs, this one is my favorite.
Used to fall for girls who smoked and drank and told off-color jokes, who had that certain kind of look. Just a nose ring was all it took. The ones that had that certain spunk, kind of girlish and kind of punk. But girls you make excuses for as you lead them out the door. I used to like them fancy-free, the way they would pretend to be. They wore all black, they had long hair, they acted like they didn't care. Full of beans, a great big blur. I used to fall for girls like her. They couldn't possibly all be true. 500 words when 10 would do. Like that, work the mic, play the strat, whose stomachs were completely flat. They would complain that they were fat. The kind of girls I would pursue, I made them up, they became true. I think I married 1 or 2. They made me tea and they wrote haiku. I was always drawn to the manic kind who would say whatever was on their minds. Girls like that sunk all my ships, carelessly with their loose lips. Yet for one enchanted kiss, I'd betray myself for girls like this. Wild-eyed, star tattoo, little crazy were a few. Girls like those, they have their charms, red flags and loud alarms. I loved her when they were in my arms, and I swear my love was true. And now it takes a little more to turn me on than it did before. Certain things I can't ignore, certain things I do. Girls who dance in tie-dye shirts and drawstring pants, bang on drums. You don't need me, walk around in their bare feet. Girls like that, it wouldn't last not even 1/2 minute past the moment that the clock struck 12. They'd leave me dancing with myself. Opposites at times attract, like chemicals, they can react. Girls once appealed to me, now don't seem so real to me. Girls like those, they have their charms, red flags and loud alarms. I loved them when they were in my arms, and I swear my love was true. Well, now it takes a little more turn me on than it did before. Certain things I can't ignore, certain things I do.
To fall. In the town of Skibbereen in Ireland, in the West County Cork, there's a mass grave where close to 10,000 people were buried during the famine of the 1840s. And there was a young boy by the name of Tom Guerin, who was 3 years old, who it was thought had died, and they buried him. And then 2 days later, or 3 days later, when they were trying to make room to bury more corpses, the gravedigger's shovels struck Tom Guerin's legs, and they heard him cry out, and they realized somebody was alive in there. And so they saved Tom Guerin, and he grew up to become quite a character. Became a bard. And back then, bards would travel around on foot or get rides if they could. And he would make the rounds all over the west part of County Cork, and he would spread the news of the day. He would write poems that contained the news of the day. So maybe he'd be the guy that would come to your town and tell you about how the Capitol building was occupied by demonstrators. He'd be that guy. So there's a fantastic place in the center of the town of Skibbereen. It's the Skibbereen Heritage Center, and that's where I first learned of this story, and where I picked up the sign for Skibbereen, although Skibbereen is actually that way. This is called New Shoes for Tom Guerin, because all that Tom Guerin ever wanted for his efforts as a bard traveling around was a new pair of shoes from the county council, and he petitioned them, and it took 20 years. But he finally did get his pair of shoes. So this is called New Shoes for Tom Guerin.
I write 33 verses for one pair of shoes. I wander the countryside spreading the news. I travel Rosscarbery and all of West Cork. Well, some head to Boston and others New York. I lived in the poorhouse, I slept on the floor. There was room to sit down, but not an inch more. The people who died were carried away without ceremony and without delay. Death by starvation was sweeping the land. On my little shoulder it lay its cold hand. My mother, she begged for a coffin for me. They all thought I died. There was only 3, but the gravedigger's shovel plunged in the dirt struck me so hard it must have hurt. Well, some say I moaned and some say I screamed. All agreed I wasn't as dead as I seemed. Now I roam all the world, admire each scene. Tax on the ratepayers I've never been. I only appeal to you now for a pair of brogues, and I'll vanish again into air. Not so many people get lowered down twice. I don't recommend it, just one should suffice. I'm the boy who was buried and dug up alive, the poet, the genius, the one who survived. I rose from the dead in the year 48, when a grave at the Abbey had been near my fate. Since then, for subsistence, I've done all my best. The one shoe points eastward and the other points west. I roam all the world, admire each scene. Tax on the ratepayers I've never been. I only appeal to you now for a pair of brogues, and I'll vanish again into air. Yes, I only appeal to you now for a pair of brogues, and I'll vanish again into air. New shoes. So I mentioned Patreon earlier, and I'll just flash that URL again. It's the one in the upper left corner. Patreon.com is it's a wonderful platform. It's a way that you can support your favorite artists on a monthly basis, and you can pledge as much or as little as you might want. And in exchange, I make certain things accessible to my patrons that I don't share elsewhere, such as brand new songs that I'm debuting for the first time, new videos. I do private Zoom hangouts with my patrons where I'll play requests and we'll sit and chat. There's all sorts of different things that I can give away or share, and I don't have tiers like some people do, so at whatever level you might pledge, you'll get the same access as everybody. And so I hope you'll check out my Patreon page. It's a way for me to have just a little bit of security these days, to know that a certain amount is going to come in every month when very little is otherwise coming in. So here's a Newish song. It's called The Things You Think You Know. You think you know, they aren't really so, but you insist they're true. A lot of people do. It would shock you if you knew. You'd be angry too, but that is letting go of the things you think you know. The things you think you know, you believe them even though they can be disproved. You're not even moved. It's not like you believe. You can't even conceive that first domino of the things you think you know. Well, that's what you don't know. The things you think you do, you'll go on and blow till you're good and blue. I'll tell you even though there's no convincing you. That's what you don't know, the things you think you do, yeah. That's what you don't know, the things you think you do. The things you think you know, were like that long ago, but not so much today. You really have to go back a ways until there wasn't any gray, and you only had to hope and pray, maintain the status quo, the things you think you know. The things you think you know. Excuse me, but hello, who's telling you these things? Who's pulling the strings? Well, who knows more than you? None of the experts do. Well, anyway, there you go. The things you think you know. Well, that's what you don't know. The things you think you do. You'll go on and blow till you're good and blue. I'll tell you even though there's no convincing you. But that's what you don't know. The things you think you do. Yeah, that's what you don't know. The things you think you do. The things you think you know. That warm and cozy glow. It's mostly good for show. Gives you comfort though. You keep stoking the fire to get it going higher. You won't let it lie low. The things you think you know. Well, that's what you don't know. The things you think you do. You go on and blow till you're good and blue. I'll tell you even though there's no convincing you. That's what you don't know. The things you think you do. Yeah, that's what you don't know. The things you think you do. That's what you don't know. The things you think you do. That's what you don't know. The things you think you do. I guess it's time for a baseball song. Here's one that I played for the first time a few weeks ago. First time in years. You may have seen the movie The Natural, one of the great baseball movies of all time. And this song is actually the true story of what The Natural was based on. Steinhagen, who was an office typist, went to a baseball game at Wrigley Field with a couple of her girlfriends. It was innocent enough. Ruth Ann's future, though, that day would be revealed. Some girl she didn't know, yelling, "Hey, you funny face," to a player who was within shouting distance. Well, there stood her Adonis in the form of Eddie Waitkus, who was blissfully unaware of her existence. It was April 27, 1947. Ruth Ann blew a circuit in her brain. The 27th of every month would be the anniversary of the time she first saw Eddie Waitkus play. Every Saturday and Sunday, she'd ride the L to Wrigley, sit halfway up the line behind first base. That was his position, and those were the closest seats where she could have the best view of his face. Ruth Ann collected articles and photographs of Eddie. She slept with pictures of him in her head. She learned some Lithuanian to better understand his roots, made a shrine to him beside her bed. Ruth Ann's world was shattered the day Eddie was traded to Philadelphia, and for many days she cried. She wrote him letters often, she phoned and left him messages, but never once did she get a reply. On the north side of Chicago, the Edgewater Beach Hotel, when the Phillies came to town, that's where they stayed. reservation a month ahead of time. And on her calendar, she ticked off every day. Room service daiquiri and a couple whiskey sours, all three of which she nervously consumed. While waiting up for Eddie, who was out late having dinner after starring in the game that afternoon. Ruth Ann bribed the bellhop to leave a note for Eddie, urging him to come up to her room. 1297A, Ruth Ann wrote on hotel stationery that had the faintest trace of her perfume. It's extremely important I see you as soon as possible. It'd be to your advantage, let me explain. But it was very nearly midnight, and the fellies had a curfew. Eddie just kept staring at the name. 'Cause Ruth Ann was the same name as the woman Eddie dated. But what on earth would she be doing in town? She surely would have phoned first before coming to Chicago. Eddie called the elevator down. Tall girl answered the door, said Ruth Ann stepped out for a moment. So Eddie sat down by the window in a chair. Ruth Ann said, I got a surprise for you, and it was a pawn shop rifle. Eddie said, baby, what have you got there? Baby, why'd you do it? Cried a bleeding Eddie Wakus. Over him, a lifeless Ruth Ann stood. Well, you've been bothering me for 2 years, Ruth Ann said to Eddie, and if I couldn't have you, then nobody could. Ruth Ann phoned the desk clerk to say she had shot Eddie. That's probably why he did not bleed to death. Baby, why'd you do it? He kept calling from the stretcher, struggling for every precious breath. Ruth Ann spent 3 years in a mental institution. They set her free when they said she was cured. After 4 operations, Eddie Wakus did recover. At least you see his name in all the old box scores. But Eddie took to drinking. He turned into an angry man. There were lots of rumors. People often wondered just how well he knew that crazy starstruck fan. That's called The Unnatural Shooting of Eddie Wakus. So, most years I go down to Texas in May for the Kerrville Folk Festival, see all my friends down there, and sit around campfires with all my songwriting buddies, swap songs for a couple of weeks. And about 25 years ago, I was down there with a girlfriend named Annie, and we were staying for the entire festival. It's an 18-day long festival. And at some point, we decided to head into town to buy some groceries, and on the way in, we saw a man selling peaches off the back of his truck. Now, apologies to any of you listening from Georgia or South Carolina. Your peaches are wonderful too, but Fredericksburg, Texas peaches are the best, and we had to have some. So the man selling them was one of those people that liked to talk, and it was a very, very hot day, and I didn't want to talk. I don't think Annie wanted to talk. We just wanted to buy our peaches and get on our way, but the man selling them just kept going from one tangent to the next till we started taking little baby steps backwards towards the car, at which point he started to follow us and kept on talking and talking and talking until suddenly he realized he hadn't introduced himself, and he felt terrible for this. It's a very southern thing. And he apologized all over himself before telling us his name was Bill. And I told him, I'm Chuck, and this was Annie. And he said, Annie, huh?
I had a woman in my life named Annie. He started to tell me a whole new story. I probably rolled my eyes. I probably sighed very deeply. But something told me I ought to pay attention. Maybe it was the look in his eye that had changed. Maybe it was the tone of his voice that had changed. But I'm glad I did, because he told me this.
We stopped for peaches, little roadside stand. Man said his name was Bill. Said, I'm Chuck and this is Annie. He said Annie was the one and only true love of his life. They met at his wedding, but by then he had a wife. It was during the reception in the spring of '64. And she, his newlywed's best friend, followed him out the ballroom door. Maybe his ring got smaller. Maybe his finger swelled. Maybe he made a big mistake. Maybe time would tell. Bill asked, do you feel what I feel? And Annie said, I do. And Bill was at a loss, wondering now, what should he do? He did what he had to. He'd just taken a wife. She would take good care of him from the rest of her life. Bill and Annie fought the urge. They saw each other often. But she was there in black the day Bill's wife lay in her coffin. By then she'd gotten married. By then she'd moved away. She'd asked Bill for his blessings. He said I was okay. Well, Bill said, taste the peaches. And he cut us each a slice. They were a little on the small side, but they sure tasted nice. Do you think I did the right thing, Bill asked? Though I knew he knew. So I answered with a question. Asked him, Bill, do you? Well, he said, Annie, pleased to meet you. Nice to meet you, Chuck. Annie and I, we drove away in Annie's pickup truck with a box of 20 peaches, a homegrown tomato too, and a couple of things to think about, and every now and then I do.
Here's a picture of me singing this song 2 years later to Bill the Peach Man. I would have done it the very next year, but there was a drought in Texas, and there was no peach crop, and Bill had to find some other work that year. He wasn't out at all selling peaches, but 2 years later he was, and I pulled over with a borrowed guitar and sang that song for him. That was one of the highlights of my life, I should say. Well, my most recent CD is called Them and Us, and put it out in 2018. It's available as a download at bandcamp.com or as the actual CD. If you still have a CD player, you can get it from chuckbrodsky.com. Again, interested in tipping today, the links are at the beginning of the comments, both Facebook and YouTube. And I appreciate anything that you care to donate today. This is my sole means of making a living, and I'm relying on your goodwill, your generosity, and I hope you will be among the 0.1% of all the people who view my live streams who actually do send a tip. That would be great. Thank you. So there are exactly two types of people who live in the United States. Those who are us and those who are them. Except really, we're all just one big us.
There's a standoff all across the Great Divide, with friends and family members on both sides. Someone struck a match, it would combust, scorching everyone, both them and us. It's raining dirty words and disrespect. It's not having any positive effect. The bridges have collapsed because of rust. We can't reach each other, them and us. We've got our earplugs in and our blinders on, and we wonder, where have all the flowers gone? Where once there was a garden, cool and lush. All that's left here now is them and us. And I've never felt so lonely in this world as I do when all those banners are unfurled, and the airwaves are just spewing all that stuff about us and them. Look what it's done to us. Our differences are few and overblown, and it sometimes leads to punches being thrown. And there seems to be a few things to discuss. But you can't say a word to them or us. We write them off because of how they vote, and we write them off because they came on a boat. We turn our backs with contempt and with disgust at every one of them who isn't us. We identify them by the clothes they wear. We identify them by their skin and hair. And we look for any reason not to trust whatever about them is not like us. And I've never felt so lonely in this world as I do when all those banners are unfurled, and the airwaves are just spewing all that stuff about us and them. Look what it's done to us. Thoughtful, decent people turning mean. If only all our gods could intervene. Now there must be some controls they could adjust they could make us whole, them and us. And I've never felt so lonely in this world as I do when all those banners are unfurled and the airwaves are just spewing all that stuff about us and them. Look what it's done to us. There's a standoff all across the Great Divide, with friends and family members on both sides.
Part of the show I like to call Puck View. In the upper left-hand corner, we have a puck from the 1984 All-Star Game, National Hockey League All-Star Game played in New Jersey. And in the middle there, top row, we have a puck from the 1990 All-Star Game played in Pittsburgh. And in the upper right corner, from the 1991 All-Star Game played in Chicago. And down in the lower left corner, that's a puck from the 2010 Winter Olympic Games in Vancouver. And in the middle on the bottom row is a puck from the Lake Placid Olympics in 1980. And then there's a puck from the U.S. national team. Puck View. And now we've reached the point of the show for my weekly magic trick. Abracadabra, presto, changeo. There's a man living in Tel Aviv named Amnon Weinstein, and Amnon restores violins that were destroyed during the Holocaust, violins that belonged to Holocaust victims. Many of them were either destroyed right there on the spot by the Nazis or stored in attics or under floors, false floors, or inside walls, and fell into disrepair. But Amnon has been repairing them for many years. And when 40 of them have been completely restored, a concert was held in front of the Western Wall in Jerusalem, where these violins were brought back to life, and the music that they played was the music of the banned composers, the composers that the Nazis had banned. And they brought all that music back to life on these violins. Now, Amnon has continued to restore Holocaust violins, and I think he's probably up around 100 by now, and they go on tour around the world. They're called the Violins of Hope. I happen to own one, although this was not restored by Amnon. This was restored by somebody, I believe, in Tennessee. But as you can see, it's got the Star of David. What's very interesting about it is that it's got these gears instead of tuning pegs, which most violins would have. But I found out it was not all that uncommon for violins made in Eastern Europe in the middle 1800s to have those kind of tuners. So this is a song I wrote to honor Amnon. It's called Your Violin.
Your violin's ready. It's here in the shop. It's got a new bridge. It's got a new top. The neck, it was broken, knocked in two. Now it's almost as good as new. I salvaged the splinters the best that I could. Wherever I couldn't, I patched up the wood. It sounds pretty good. Looks okay. It's ready to pick up. It's ready to play. Music was silenced, locked in its case, had to be hidden and not show its face. Stormtroopers came, they kicked down the door, found it after they tore up the floor. Just for amusement, they forced you to play, and after you'd finished, they took you away. They stomped it to bits, just left it there. Your violin's ready, I made the repairs. The bones of its body were kept in a sack by the neighbors in case you might ever come back. Up in the attic, musty with mold, discovered after the house was sold. It wasn't much more than a bag of debris the day when it was delivered to me. The name inside, is it yours as well? Your violin has a story to tell. Every so often, another appears, like the rest that have found me over the years. Who'd it belong to? Where was it from? Who wore down the back of the neck with their thumb? I take the pieces and I make them whole, healing the body and waking the soul. I cut and I sand, I bend and I glue, in honor of him, in remembrance of you. I cut and I sand, I bend and I glue, in honor of him, in remembrance of you.
I want to thank you very much for watching this week. I'll be back next Sunday for my 29th weekly live stream. Hope you'll stay well, stay safe, stay healthy. I'll finish with a song I always finish with, which I'd like to dedicate to my parents, and I would also like to dedicate to Betsy Burnham. Hang in there, Betsy.
Well, I hope I see you later, 'cause it's time for me to go. That's my ride that just pulled over, and it sure was good to know you. So go answer your calling, go and fill somebody's cup. If you see an angel falling, won't you stop and help him up? We are each other's angels, and we meet when it is time. We keep each other going, and we show each other signs. Sometimes you'll stumble, sometimes you'll just lie down, sometimes you'll just get lonely with all these people around. You might shiver when the wind blows, and you might get blown away. You might lose a little color, you might lose a little faith. We are each each other's angels, and we meet when it is time. We keep each other going, and we show each other signs. So thank you for the water. Thought I was gonna die out here in the desert, but you quenched my thirst. Let's break a little bread together. I've got a little manna. It was a gift from someone who was passing by and offered me a lift. We are each other's angels, and we meet when it is time. Keep each other going, we show each other signs.
Thank you. Stay well. See you next time.